Yeah. The nonprofits do good work. I mean, this is my experience at Venture for America. Really proud of everything we did. But one reason I ran for president was that I actually started Venture for America because I wanted to create a functional economy.
Yeah, which sounds like I should start a nonprofit. Like I
Yeah.
want to help people.
Yeah, and I determined that in order to start a functional economy, you would need to change a lot of things that a nonprofit never will be able to.
Yes.
And so you need to have a functional government. And so I'm still on the functional government train. I believe it's the highest leverage thing we can do, even though it's very difficult and arduous. But it's the only genuine answer. And one of the things I suggest to people, by the way, a lot of philanthropists are wising up to this.
Yeah.
It's like, look, let's say you're going to pump millions of dollars into education. What's not going to change is our educational outcomes unless you actually had a better educational system.
Yeah.
And how do you get a better educational system? There's similar with climate change. It's like, hey, you're going to pump millions of dollars into climate change. You know what would help with that? Like a government that was doing various things. So this becomes the highest leverage move you can make. Even though, again, like people, and a lot of people, it's like, oh, politics, want to stay away. It's like, look, I get it. I hate politics too.
Yeah.
But if we're going to try and solve the biggest problems meaningfully, that's how someone like me winds up running for president. That's how someone like me winds up starting the Forward Party.
Yep.
And so we're trying to make the good things happen. Now, you have taken a different tack, which is something that I 1,000% endorse and support and am an investor in and a board member of and very helpful. But you identified a problem and then started a benevolent B Corp to try and solve that problem and create a win-win-win. So What is the problem? And then what the heck is Samarity?
So I'll go back up one step, and that essentially my takeaways, both before I joined the campaign and during the campaign, and even now in starting Samarity, is that doing good by the numbers and also my personal experience, it's not in great shape. And don't get me wrong, there's amazing nonprofit organizations that I love that do fantastic work. And I want to we got to be very clear here. We're not talking about, if you're a nonprofit executive listening to this, you're like, wait, my organization does incredible work. Screw you, Zach. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the institution and its systems. And the numbers the proof's in the pudding. Household giving is down and has been declining. Now, some of that's economy related, but percentage of households as a whole giving is going down as well. Amount of Americans volunteering massively declining. We all say you've asked somebody, do you want to volunteer this year? Are you going to volunteer this year? The answer is yes. Almost 100% of people say, yes, I'm going to volunteer. That's like, are you an asshole question. We all say, yes, no, I'm not a jerk. Yes, I'm going to volunteer. The reality is 1 in 4 people will volunteer this year. And it's kind of the same thing you see with companies. We say we're doing awesome things, but the reality is we got to make money.
Well, part of the reason why so few people will actually volunteer is that you're not sure your time's going to be well utilized.
Nailed it.
Like
Yes.
you show up, and a lot of these orgs would be like, "Narf," it's like
they want money.
It's no one's fault.
Yes.
But it's just. I actually volunteered for a nonprofit as a 20-something-year-old, and they had me do something really, like I literally stuffed envelopes and then sealed the envelopes.
Correct.
I ran out of saliva.
If you talk to
It's one of those
nonprofits, they will
things.
not. If you really get them in an honest environment, they're like, most of the time we don't need volunteers.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
vast- Unless some organizations like Suit Up might they're actually set up to
utilize
volunteers, but most are not. And that's so. The problem I'm looking at, like on the macro level, is that philanthropy does what I call a feel good model, and what do I mean by that is that if you're wealthy or if you're a big company, if you have resources, nonprofits will come to you and say, look at these starving children. Look at this horrible problem. Aren't you not a jerk? And you have money. Can't you help us? And don't get me wrong. That does work some way in terms of getting resources to places. But it's not, it treats a symptom. It doesn't treat the cure. And so like taking a big step back, y'all, like how do we look at this system? Like how do we get beyond the feel good? The average corporation gives 1% of their profits to charity a year, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like the fact they're giving anything is fantastic, but it's not fundamental to anything they do. And the reality is Coca-Cola would give more to charity, more than 1%, if it helped them sell more Coca-Cola.
Or if it solved a problem.
Or if it solved a problem for them that was helping them sell more Coke. And that's what it's fundamentally set up to do. So what I'm trying to create here is a shift from the feel-good model to an incentives model.
Or an efficacy model.
And yeah, it's a good way to put it as well, where Coca-Cola has more incentive to support great causes. Now, that's tricky. And if you talk to folks that work in the nonprofit industry, there's a certain purity that they value, where it's like, we are here to help and that's it. We don't care about making money. We care about doing good. That is true. That is a good thing. That said, there's a way to align these incentives, especially if you have government that's ineffective. Coca-Cola does care about education. The employees of that company and executives most of the time actually care about living in a great world and having great schools for kids and other kids to go to. So how do you align these incentives? So that's where we landed with Samarity. He's like, what can there be for-profit incentives at company to help nonprofit goals and ambitions and social causes?
Yeah, you get that 1% up to 1.5, 2%, 3%. It's a game changer.
Game changer.
We're talking
You double
about,
the market.
We're talking about billions of dollars.
Yes. So how do you do this? And then like you really think about it, is like, okay, what does Habitat for Humanity, as an example nonprofit, what do they have to offer Coca-Cola in terms of value?
Let's use another one, man. Let's use Humanity Forward.
Yeah. What does Humanity Forward have to add value to Delta or various industries, various companies, in a incentive aligned way? And where we've landed is what we found. And what we found is, what do charities have? They have a lot of supporters. And in many ways, they have passionate supporters. They have the ability to cut through the noise differently. So where Samarity is right now, it's a version of a market research company. So what we're doing is we're helping nonprofits raise money by polling their supporters. So how it works right now, if you're a nonprofit and you have, let's call it, you have your email list, you have your social media followers, you have your volunteer events, et cetera, instead of asking them for money like you normally do,
or telling them about your awesome work, which you also do.
Right. We give you a custom email or custom survey link that you can send and share with all your supporters. And for every person who completes that survey, the nonprofit unlocks a donation. Donations vary, usually on average $1 to $5. And as a nonprofit, you keep the data. We are essentially like an outsourced donor research, supporter research service. You get all this data because it's yours. And you also get the money for it. And then the data is secure, it's anonymous. And what we are as a market research firm, we package all up anonymously and put together market research reports that your Deltas and Coca-Colas and Amazons and JD Powers, et cetera, are interested in paying for. And we share the profits, of course, with nonprofits. And if you think about this, the dream is you're Coca-Cola, you're spending $10 million on market research every year. Can you spend $5 million on that with Samarity? It's the same exact market research, but a chunk of it is actually going to charities. So trying to find that win-win. So it's a nice win if you're a nonprofit. We have some nonprofits making $1,000 a month or so just to send out surveys that many of them want to or should be doing anyways. So it's early now. We're just starting. We're onboarding our first like 100 to 200 nonprofits, but we're pretty excited because we feel like this is the first runway or like entry into aligning the incentives of the for-profit and nonprofit world.
Hey YouTube, glad you're enjoying the podcast. If you really like it, hit subscribe, and then YouTube will notify you every time we have a bang up new guest. Thank you.